Hey everyone, it's Rob, and thanks for listening in today. I greatly appreciate your time as always. Today, I'm speaking with Mayor Randall Woodfin, who was sworn in on November 28th, 2017, as the 30th mayor of Birmingham, Alabama. He is a native of Birmingham and a graduate of Cumberland School of Law. Mayor Woodfin is an attorney and former president of the Birmingham Board of Education. Throughout his career, he has worked in various positions for the city of Birmingham, which is why he's committed to bringing a new vision, a new dedication, and a new energy to a city where he wants citizens to have every opportunity to work, play, and grow to their fullest potential. His dedication to his hometown and to others developed when he was 15 while working as a bagger at a supermarket in Birmingham. It was at the supermarket where Mayor Woodfin learned the importance of putting people first. And that's a concept he's carried on to Morehouse College, then to law school, and finally into his career. And today, that slogan is at the core of his administration. We discuss what it's like to be mayor during a worldwide pandemic, his oversight on removing a 115-year-old monument during the protests, why it's important for us to listen to each other and be empathetic, and how the city is supporting its citizens and small businesses during this crisis. So, please enjoy my chat with Mayor Randall Woodfin. Mayor Woodfin, good to see you today. Thanks for joining me.
Good to see you too. Happy to be on. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So we have one thing in common. I'm from Birmingham, Michigan, and you're from Birmingham, Alabama. Birmingham, Michigan is 91.5% white and 3% black. Birmingham, Alabama, if I did my homework somewhat well, is 70% black, 25% white.
It's a little flip.
That's right. Couldn't be more different. But yet we're all the same.
Yes, sir.
I read that growing up, you never lived in a house with less than 8 people in it. Can you tell?
That's a fact, which means that could be possibly more than 8 people sometimes.
That's good. How did that shape you?
Look, I think it shaped me. I think it allowed me to be the mayor of Birmingham, if I'm being very honest with you. It wasn't just never less than 8 people. It was also 4 generations. I like to tell people my great-grandmother lived with us until she was 100 years of age. She was blind from diabetes, so I had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with her, taking care of her, sitting at her feet, listening to her. And so just my experience with my great-grandmother alone until the age of 100 showed me the importance of doing more listening than talking, being very patient, et cetera. So I think it shaped me a lot.
I want to talk to you about patience in a minute. I noticed something about you when I was doing my research, but you talked about how it shaped you to be able to become the mayor of Birmingham, Alabama, and you created the Woodfin Way. And when I was reading it, something stuck out to me, and that was this part where it says, all hands on deck needed to tackle the challenges that plague the city and help write the next chapter for Birmingham citizens, families, and small businesses that help shape your campaign. So can you talk a little bit about the Woodfin Way and this all hands on deck idea that everybody's got to be involved?
Well, I think the all hands on deck part, I should go in some detail. But I think the way to go into that detail is about making it very plain. Democracy only works from a participatory standpoint. I think many times we believe that we vote for a mayor, or governor, or president, and then we sit back and watch them do all the work and then maybe go vote for them 4 years from now. I think the goal is, especially at the local level, we need residents to participate. We need them to participate at the neighborhood level. We need them to participate at the council level and the school board level. You can't just think that your mayor and your council, you can put them in the boat and every issue is going to be solved. We need our residents actually participating with us to make democracy at the local level work. And so that's what I mean by all hands on deck. The Woodfin Way is simple. The city of Birmingham is a city made of 99 neighborhoods. I think there was a great job being done on making the living room work, which is our downtown. But if your downtown is clean, but the rest of the house isn't, then your house doesn't work. And so for us, that's analogous to the rest of our city working. Our city is only strong as our lowest quality of life neighborhood. And the other 98 neighborhoods needed the attention of local government. They needed the attention of investing in tax dollars. They needed the investment of paving streets and repairing potholes, making sidewalks walkable, and getting rid of dilapidated houses, and investing in these overgrown lots with single family homes, investing in youth programs, et cetera. And so the Woodfin Way is simply about how do we make Birmingham better for the lowest quality of life resident and the lowest quality of life neighborhood.
So how is that going? I think you're 2 years in now.
A little over two, right? Actually, almost three.
Almost
the end of November will be three. And what I like is the tangible differences we've made in people's lives. I think the thing I like to describe is, imagine a neighborhood where you have a Black mother who has a child or grandchild living with her, and she walks out into her front porch or her front yard. And she looks to the right of her and she sees a dilapidated structure. She looks to the left of her and that's an overgrown empty lot. In front of her is a sidewalk that's been buckling so long her child or grandchild can't even ride the bike on that sidewalk. And when she backs up out of her driveway, there's too many potholes in that street. But she can't even drive close enough to a grocery store because it's a food desert. And the neighborhood park doesn't have adequate playground equipment. And the street light doesn't work. And by the way, when she comes home, it's too many gunshots. So every now and then her or her grandchild or child have to fall to the floor. Those are the things we've been addressing. And so we spent a considerable amount of resources over the last almost 3 years removing that blighted structure to the right of her. We've invested a considerable amount of money into our land bank to make sure we can go with building single family homes on this empty lot to the left of her. We've made millions of investments into our sidewalk plan, our street plan, to make our streets drivable and our sidewalks more walkable, as well as partner with Alabama Power to get LED lights into our neighborhoods, as well as continue to make investments in our neighborhood parks. We have 117 parks throughout our city. So investing in green space to make sure our families have adequate safe spaces to take their children. And we've invested in not a full bank, but we created a pool of resources to make sure we can leverage dollars to bring healthy grocery and food options to our families in our neighborhoods. So there's a lot of more work to be done, but I can tell you there has been some significant progress in everything I just addressed.
That's great. You are passionate about education. You served on the education board in Birmingham. Mm-hmm. I'm curious why you're so passionate about it and what needs to be done differently in our schools to prepare our society to lead with genuine care for each other. What's missing?
I think part of the passion is I have this fundamental belief that education really can change a person's life. I look at my own childhood. I think that the fact that I had the opportunity to finish high school and go to college is another reason why I can sit in front of you as mayor of Birmingham. In addition to that, I'm blessed. My mom and stepmother and sister, my mom and stepmother are retired teachers. My sister's still a current teacher. So at the kitchen table, I'm going to learn and listen about education. I mean, it's in my blood. My mother literally today, 2 days ago, she just sent me a text. At age 66, she just got reinstated to be able to be in a position to teach again after being retired for over 5 years. So, I mean, education is extremely important. Now, the second part of your question is what can we do? The biggest thing we can do is spend more time currently in urban school systems, not just in the city of Birmingham, but across the nation in these urban settings. We're still educating our children based on an agrarian culture. Our urban children don't go to a farm 10 weeks in the summer. And so unlike the children who have opportunities in suburbia and exurbia that are exposed to traveling, exposed to tutors, exposed to additional learning in the summer, our children are not doing anything those 10 weeks. The problem is if they're already behind at their current grade level, they finish that year, you let them off 10 weeks. as adults, we shouldn't have any expectation that when they go into the next year, they're going to be at grade level. So I literally mean we should spend more time with our children. Currently, the average urban school system averages about 180 days in school. Well, that's 6 months. As adults, you and I, can you imagine only working in our jobs 6 months a year? Mm-hmm. So if we wouldn't do ourselves like that as adults, I'm not sure why as adults we have that expectation for our children. Mm-hmm. So I think the biggest thing is we need more school days. I'm not necessarily advocating year-round school, but I am advocating that our children need to be in school more than 180 days a year. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just the biggest thing, more time.
Yeah.
I think the second thing is the foundation. I want you to imagine the home you're in right now because of the coronavirus. We're doing a studio. You're doing it in a home instead of an actual studio.
Right.
Well, your home, when your home was built, you know, they didn't necessarily start with the right side of your house, which in our case represents K through 5th. They didn't start with the left side of your house that represents 6th through 8th grade. And it definitely didn't start with the roof and ceiling, which represents 9th through 12th grade. They started with the foundation. I think the foundation for education is not necessarily kindergarten through 5th grade. The foundation is actually birth through 5 years of age. And as a country, if we want to change urban education, then we need to throw all of our resources at making sure the foundation is strong. That's the only way to have a solid home. Those are just 2 points.
That's great. Can you talk about, I saw a talk you gave, and you said you're always looking for nuggets to incorporate with your team in the city. And one of the things that you talked about is this idea that they can get some time off to be a hero. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think on our jobs, we're always learning. I teach my team that we need to be sponges and that everything can't be centered around the work you do every day. You need to go out here and expose yourself. You need to go out here and lend your time, lend your talent, and lend your treasure to other nonprofits, to the community and organizations. Be exposed on how to be not only a better leader, but a better person. And so we do this thing where internally we call it doing good. We're always trying to showcase our folk who are out here making sacrifices and they don't even realize someone's looking. And so we're always looking to build more character among my team, as well as leadership opportunity and development among my team.
It's great. You're building a strong culture within almost, I'm an entrepreneur. And so what I hear some of the words that you're sharing, some of the ideas is this strong culture you're building within the city staff. That's unique.
That's
how do you do that, especially when you have different administrations that, you know, people that had worked for different administrations, and now you come in and you're trying to make a change and move the needle?
When we talk about mission and we talk about a theme, and then we talk about core values. I want to spend the time on the core values because the core values are what I think will drive any organization. It's a small business, corporation, a nonprofit, or in our case, municipal government. Our 5 core values are customer service, efficiency, effectiveness, transparency, and accountability. And even if I'm no longer mayor, even if you've only been a city employee 1 year, 30 years, those 5 core values will work for any organization anywhere on the globe. And everything we do and the services we provide, picking up trash, coming to city halls for your business license, customer service starts and ends today. That is a core value you have to drive regardless of who the mayor is. Being efficient and effective in how we deliver our services and how we allocate tax dollars has to be extremely important. Again, even if I'm not the mayor, that's a no-brainer. Transparency. It's not my money. It's not this administration's money. And whoever the mayor is, again, it's city tax dollars. So be transparent in how we spend money, what we spend money on. And the most important thing is accountability. Remember that participatory part it goes beyond just voting for me. Hold me and my team and the city council accountable for the decisions we make on your behalf over the next 4 years. So we need to be internally accountable to ourselves. Again, if you've been here 1 year or 30 years, every decision you make, be accountable for it. So those 5 core values, that is culture building, and it is an uphill battle because I inherited a culture where no one talked about core values in government, right?
Right.
We think about core values when you do Chick-fil-A or Target, but I think municipal government, if you want it to work, you should have some core values as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I'm curious when you led the disassembly of the monument in Lynn Park, the 115-year-old Confederate Soldiers and Sailors Monument, I think is what it was called. Do I have that correct?
Yes, sir.
How did those core values play into your thought process? And could you share a little bit about how you got out there quickly? I'd seen some video where, you know, community members were trying to pull it down or, you know, take it down, and just share a little bit about what happened that evening. And I have a couple of questions around that.
Yeah, well, so that evening, I thought it was important. I got the video of folks trying to tear it down. There were two things I was considering. Main things, I didn't want anybody to get hurt, right? Because that's dangerous. Second thing is, truthfully, as much as I sympathize with them and empathize with why they were doing that, I didn't want anyone to get arrested. So that is why I waited until that crowd and asked them to stop. And then I did something, and it's funny, just like, because I've never necessarily used this in a public setting, but for the last four days, everyone has been using Congressman John Lewis's term, good trouble. I asked that crowd to give me 24 hours to tear it down, knowing that it was illegal for me to do. And I did that for several reasons. One is we have to just object to revisionist history. City of Birmingham wasn't even a city during the Civil War. We were founded post the Civil War. And I think the Daughters of the Confederate knew what they were doing in these public squares. This public square, this statue represented something regulating Black people to property and slavery in a city that's 73% Black. That's just not right. It's offensive. And so the good trouble is simple. Tear this down knowing that I could possibly get in trouble, not just from a civil fine, but possibly criminally as well. But I engaged the AG's office and told them what we were doing. The core value of all five of those that he touched on is customer service. Understanding the pulse of what our residents wanted and giving them that.
Hmm. When you got in the crowd, you mentioned a little bit earlier about patience. I sensed a great deal of patience from you and a great deal of calm. People were a little worked up. At the beginning, they listened to you, and then you asked them to hold off, and they kind of got worked up about it. And I was curious, what was going through your mind at that time? You were so calm and you were patient, and you let them kind of go through a process until you spoke again. And I appreciated that. I was just wondering what was going through your mind at that time.
I was acknowledging a situation that I had no control over. I was also thinking about other mayors that I know who at some point went into crowds, not just during George Floyd, but previous. The crowd will eat you up. And I think you have to yield to the moment. I was not in control, and I knew that. And I thought it was extremely important to exercise patience in a crowd that was if people were bold enough to use their physical bodies to attempt to tear down something that they physically couldn't tear down.
Yeah.
Then I needed to show respect and appreciation for what they were attempting to do and let them know, although I don't want you to do it, I not only agree with what you're doing, but I sympathize and empathize with what you're doing. Let me totally center myself and understand the gravity of the moment. Mm-hmm. Not in control.
You did a great job at that. And you acknowledged their feelings over and over again, which I also thought was an amazing thing to do. You were hearing them, and then they listened. They ultimately listened, and you were able to take the monument down. And when that was happening, I'm curious how you felt at that time.
Well, sleeping. there was no sleep that night. that's
okay.
Yeah. There was no sleep that night.
Uh-huh.
And you got to know, when I went into that crowd, I asked them, some of the conversation no one could hear. I was saying, give me a week. And the guy was like, no. I was like, well, give me 3 days. He was like, no. I was like, okay, give me 2. He said, no. So I was like, all right, give me 1 day. Give me to Tuesday. Tuesday morning. I had 24 hours to tear that down. So we spent the rest of the night trying to figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Can you discuss the idea of brainwashing, these lies about our history that have become part of the curriculum in education?
Yeah, I think, this is such an interesting topic, but I think for your audience, it's always important to use very, very plain language to people. We got to remember, United States of America, at the time, those who fought against the Union, by definition, were committing treason. So just think about that for a second. Committing treason is a clear definition of being un-American. Not to mention, they lost, okay? They lost. So a participatory trophy in the form of these Confederate monuments in public squares on display to signify something that didn't happen, right? You're promoting something that was treasonous. You're promoting something that's un-American, and you lost. It is the total opposite. It is a 180 of being American and patriotic. But the revisionist history and what they did in this public square with these statues says, no, this was a good thing. This was, quote, about states' rights. No, it wasn't. It was clearly about a economy and a way the economy was driven in the South they wanted to hold on to in the form of labor through Black people as slaves and property. They didn't want to let it go. And so not just the statue, I always talk about the statue as the low bar in public squares. Some of this made its way all the way into the textbook about the Civil War was a fight for honor and states' rights. That's just not true. It's just not true. And it's kind of scary almost, because that has existed for quite some time through several generations.
Right. And it's hard, I think, when I've spoken with people, it's hard for them to wrap their head around the non-truth. That's how deep it is.
It's very deep. It's deep enough for folk to think it's okay to fly a flag. That's the opposite of being American and patriotic.
Right. Yeah.
Think about that for a second.
Yeah. I think about it all the time.
Yeah. Between the flag or the statues on public display in all these southern states, it literally does not belong.
Right.
It's un-American. You can't have it both ways.
No. You mentioned John Lewis. He passed away on Saturday, as we all know. How did he have an impact on you in his life? How did that have an impact on you? And what lessons, which I'm sure there's many, but maybe you could point to 1 or 2, can we learn from him so we can all lead with genuine care for each other?
Well, I think the good trouble is overused because it's easy for people to say. It's not only catchy, but it's real. But John Lewis, when you listen to him, and I've had the opportunity to meet him twice, when you listen to him, he was very, very comfortable passing the torch to the next generation. That he understood democracy is also a participatory sport. And that in order to get to where we needed to be, not just as Black people, but as Americans, you have to fight against any injustice. Okay, so he physically laid his body on the line back in '65, etc. When he was on the front line going across that bridge. And not only was his body beaten and his skull cracked and his lungs filled with that tear gas, but I'm talking about literal blood, sweat, and tears and sacrifice just to get people to vote. And you fast forward to last Saturday and the hypocrisy We've seen on social media where certain folks are lowering the flag or posting pictures of not John Lewis and saying, this is my friend, and all of these other things. Hey, you've had a grand opportunity for several months to pass the Voting Rights Act. If you're going to honor John Lewis' legacy, pass the Voting Rights Act. And he was literally fighting for that till his death. And I think for me, as mayor, at age 39, with all the humble pie in the world, realizing that he was fighting as a teenager and at 20, I mean, he stood on the steps of in DC in his early 20s. We are still in 2020 fighting for voting rights. And it's crazy, but the biggest lesson I learned is the torch has been passed. John Lewis has gone from an elder to now an ancestor. He's gone from a living hero to angel. And he literally has given us a blueprint, the next generation, on how to fight for justice. That's my biggest lesson.
That's great. Well, when you became mayor, I'm sure you couldn't have ever imagined you'd get to be mayor during a pandemic. That wasn't in the Woodfin Way plan.
Nowhere in the playbook.
So how's that been? And I also wanted to ask you and also let you know how much I appreciate that you've been at the forefront of a simple thing with is just wearing masks. So how's that been? And can you talk about your ability to get out there and keep talking about wearing these masks?
I go back to March and I'm watching what's happening across the globe, and then I see what happens in New York. And it was somewhere between March 10th and March 14th when the conversation started going around about nursing homes. It's the first time I actually panicked, because I realized in a city like Birmingham and the county we sit in, Jefferson County, there are a lot of elderly people here. And I got scared. And so I want you to know I went into the mode of protect people. So every decision henceforth was made through two lenses. One, protect lives. Two, be in lockstep with whatever the health experts and the health professionals say. I have reminded people since March that elected officials should shut up and do less talking and more listening. And we should be listening to the health experts, because I'm not an epidemiologist. I don't have a PhD in medicine. I'm not a doctor. I can't tell you anything about how viruses work. What I can tell you is that I'm humble enough to know that if I don't know those things, listen to the people that do. And their recommendations have been on par with saving lives, which was my number one priority. So the decisions we made early were through the lens of, will this decision help me save lives? Shut the city down before the state did. Attorney General got mad. The governor got mad. Hey, we want to save lives. All right, they opened up the economy prematurely at the beginning of May. Okay, at a minimum, if we're not ready, then we know when you talk, when you cough, when you laugh, when you sneeze, when you sing, particles come out of your mouth. I don't have to be a doctor to know that. Cover your mouth. I mean, that's not rocket science. Again, Attorney General's office, Mel let us know that they weren't comfortable with that. Question, was it constitutional? It's probably the same constitution that says you have to wear a seatbelt when you get behind the wheel of your car. It's the same constitution that says you have to wear a shirt and some shoes when you walk into a privately owned business. And so I've been quite baffled with this national conversation around covering your mouth in order to decrease the spread of the coronavirus. And listen, I would have loved to be in a position like any other mayor in the nation to follow the leader of our governor. And it would have been great for all 50 governors across our nation and across our 50 states to follow the lead of the leader of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. But man, we haven't had it. And if you don't have the leadership you need in DC or in the governor's office, then all of a sudden you get in your head as a mayor, at least in my position, I got to protect the people that live here. And even if it's not a popular decision, if it saves saving lives, I'm going to do it every time.
Was it difficult to pass the ordinance, which you did, I think, at the end of June, well ahead of, like, I'm in
I
Michigan?
did it in May.
Oh, that was in May. I'm sorry. Okay.
It was
Yeah.
early.
Okay.
It was very early.
Way ahead. Yeah.
Very difficult, very unpopular. I got hit on both sides. I got hit by the activists saying, poor people can't even afford a facial cover. And our law says you didn't have to go out here and buy anything. I got hit on the right. You're violating our constitutional rights. I heard that argument literally is the end of April. But listen, the CDC gave us recommendations. You should do these things if you're going to open back up your economy. Alabama didn't follow any of that. So everything would be better now if, as Americans, we were all wearing facial covers at the end of April, beginning of May. It is a fundamental fact. And you have to be very concerned that in our capitalistic society, we haven't gotten this right. I know why. But you have to be concerned that other countries across the globe have gotten this right, and we haven't.
Mm-hmm.
We can't be that selfish if at the same time we want SEC football down here in the South in the fall. We can't be that selfish if we want our businesses and bars to remain open. I mean, you just cannot be that selfish if you want those things. You have a choice.
Yeah.
Wear the damn facial cover, or this is going to be more prolonged more. So your choice.
So simple. Just put the thing on. Jeez. And Big Ten is a little bit stronger than SEC. So I just say.
I mean, that's another conversation.
For another time, right? When we can have that.
Michigan, Birmingham, Alabama, Roll Tide. I understand. I got you.
How do you stay positive and hopeful amidst all the strife you see out there in the world?
I think it's important to do a double dance of looking at what's in front of you and then looking at what's ahead of you. And what's in front of us is FUBAR. I don't have to tell you what FUBAR means. But let's just say we can acknowledge this. It's messed up beyond all recognition. And I think in front of us, too many people have died. Too many people are in the hospital. Too many people have lost families and mothers and grandmothers and daughters. School may not start back on time, and if it starts, children may not be in. It's the first time in 5 years I haven't been able to shake high school graduates' hands when they walked across the stage back in May. I haven't been on a date to a movies. I mean, you just think about these normal things we take for granted that we've done all our lives, and you realize in a global pandemic, there are two things to realize. We will overcome this, and that's what I mean by looking to the future. Now, it's important to know that the last 5 global pandemics that touched Earth all had a second wave. We're still in our first wave. We reached our crescendo at the highs we can go in May, and we're still coming down in July. But I think it's important to be planning for a second wave, knowing that we can't shut the economy down again. Again, how do we protect people's lives? How do we also now find a balance of protecting livelihoods? These are tough decisions, but I am more than comfortable based on the way history works. As human beings on Earth, without a doubt, we will overcome this and be stronger. I just wish we did it more as a collective. I wish we used the terms more of we, us, our versus you and I. And that's been very concerning for me. Mm-hmm. This is easier as a country to get over if we were collectively together instead of making a global pandemic about politics or partisan or Democrat, Republican, or black or white. It's baffling and it sucks, man. Okay, that's the plainest way I can tell you. But I remain hopeful because I think I'm just built that way. Go back to some of those conversations I had with my great grandmother. Life gets better. Life gets better.
That's great. What are you thinking about with these small business owners, the local businesses in Birmingham, getting through this, next year at this time? What's it looking like for us?
Listen, I think as a municipal government, we have to make every sacrifice we can for them. There's mutual benefit. We're so linked together. For them to voluntarily choose to open their business in our city, we collect taxes in the form of their business license, their sales taxes, their occupational taxes, so many other things. It's important that if we know they're hurting, we do what's necessary to make sure they can get through the crisis as well. So as early as March, we created the BHAM Strong Fund through public-private partnership to offer lifelines because we knew our small businesses had anywhere between a 10, 14-day max cash flow. And waiting on CARES funding or waiting on the federal government, well, good luck, because we see how that works. It's important that locally we do what's necessary to protect our local economy, because as much as I want the help from the state, as much as I want the help from the federal government, we have to anticipate that it may not come or it may take too long to come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we got to get that amazing farmers market you all have down there back open, running. I think you drive up to it now, but it's a community gathering place too. And that's an important thing to have in a city. All right. So as we finalize our conversation here, I have one last question for you, which is, how can a well-intentioned white person learn quickly where they are missing the mark and show up better in this world with their brothers in the Black community, brothers and sisters?
I think empathy comes to mind. I think empathy is so important in this conversation around inequality and racism in America. Sometimes we just don't know, right? We don't know people's history. We don't know what their family went through. We don't know what they're going through. So I'll give you to you my left hand over here. But I like what's happening in America right now. That officer placing his knee and the weight of his body on the neck of an unarmed Black man and snuffed the life out of him. What you realize is that it hit a nerve in America that hadn't been touched on in quite some time. And this conversation around inequality and racism and social justice has made its way to the boardroom, C-suite, all the way down to the ground level between white and Black coworkers and colleagues in corporate America and nonprofits. Just, it's everywhere. What can be done? The answer to your question, make the conversation move beyond just conversation. Make it move beyond empathy. Empathy, so sympathy, you can say, hey, I'm sorry for your loss. Empathy says, you're hurting, what can I do? That type of going from conversation to a deep dive in empathy and understanding should next move to action. That action at the board level, that action at the C-suite level, that action at the ground floor level, that action in education, that action in policy change, that action on Capitol Hill, that action in city halls across America. We who are in power, white people in positions with discretion, with resources, and the ability to move things, move them. Just move them. Move them to, you have to, there was ever a window, there was ever an opportunity to make change in America. This is that moment.
Yeah, it's a great way to end. Thank you. Mayor Woodfin, thank you so much for your time. I know how busy you are, so I do not take that lightly.
No, happy to be here.
And to all the listeners of the pod, I greatly appreciate you spending time with us. And I wish you, as always, much love and gratitude.